All right, hey everyone, welcome to our workshop today. This is a student award informational workshop. My name is Charlie Yu. I am a at-large member in ASLA Northern California. Today I have three leaders with me, Sia Yang, Anson Wang, and Laura Luo. Sia is our current president, and Anson is past uh, president last year. Laura is executive director for us. So today's agenda, we will cover three topics, and we have like 15-minute or 20-minute Q&A for you guys. I will be covering the why and how that is important for everyone as a student to apply for the student award for the North Call. And so yeah, gonna go through all the guidelines and all the requirements, eligibility things, and Anson will like share more information about tips and all the other informations. All right. So the important thing about this award for me is I know everyone know that it's a good we have good award, and if you want that it's a good on your resume, and it's a very good recognitions. I think beyond that, I think most important part for me is it is a real world practice for everyone, and since like as a student, you have this award, and that is only applied to student, right? After you graduate, you will lose the chance to apply for the student. But this year, I know we want to extend one more year for the student in the Bay Area. But after many years, you might think it is, that is a good experience for you as a student, and it's, when you get in the real world there's tons of like documents you need to prepare for the city, or you have a competition with like overseas clients, let's say. It will be like a lot of opportunity and a lot of chance to have this similar project like what you did for this award. So that is, requires when you deliver your project to the reviewer, you will have to, to enhance your knowledge about your how to like deliver your idea clearly, how to like make your graphic look better and people can get what your idea, those kind of things. So after you graduate, those when you have the real world job, they also apply those skills. And, it is a rare opportunity to start earlier. And we have six juries member today this year, and they are all like really experienced. And so they will give a lot of good aspects from different angle to for your projects. So that is another thing. For my personal experience, I had won 2019's Communication ASLA Award, and I put that in my resume. When I looking for jobs and all the other opportunities, they are really curious what it is, and I for me, I'm like kind of a little bit regret I haven't done more something like this. Um, yeah, and also I don't know how many student today here they might have like they are international student like me. There's a lot of like visa or other type of document you have to have some recognition of your knowledge and your award for in your field to apply to. So that's also another good aspects. Um, yeah, Sia and Anson, is there anything you guys want to add to this point?
I think you covered it. Good. Thanks,
Yeah,
Charlie.
yeah, and the membership is free, and that is I don't know why we don't apply for it because there's a bunch of good valuable stuff inside of it. So um yeah, and I think next one we go to some document. I know there's a long guideline in our link. So I think Sia will go through it for everyone, and there's criteria and eligibility things. And she will point out all the key points for you guys.
Thank you, Charlie. So I just want to first say, welcome everyone. And before I became the president of the Northern California chapter, I was the chair for the EP and student groups for a couple years. So, my goals is always to support students and emerging professionals. Um, we are definitely seeing the awards. It's a good recognition of your best work. So this is actually the first year that we hosting this type of informational workshop because we want to encourage you to apply and also help you to apply. So I'm gonna share my screen to go over the guidelines that we let me can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, So like on our website, like the link that I just shared with you have a lot of information about the award. And then there's also a link to this full guidelines about the award. And I would, highly encourage everyone to read through this document to help you preparing for the award submission. So, first thing I want to say, the award program that our chapter has open to students and professionals. So, we think it's a good way to, recognize local professional works as well as the student work. And then usually, every year we'll have 60 to 70 professional award submission. And then usually we have under 5, I would say, student submissions. So you can see kind of, the kind of the low rate that we have for the student awards. So this is why like, each year we're trying to advertising this more and then encourage students to apply. The other thing that you can see from this is our award is actually recognized by local firms. There's like 60 to 70 people, like firms submit their work. So it will be a good way for you to, put it on your resume if you have this award, and then the local firms will also recognize that. And this year we have a couple award categories, and then the students can submit under any of the categories here. So we have general design, residential design, urban design, analysis and planning, research and communication, international projects, and small project and big impact, and community impact, which is very JEDI focused, which JEDI means justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. So you can submit under any categories here. And we also this year we introduced a new award for biodiversity and climate action. So like for be considered for this award, you don't need to win any of the award that like the award categories here. All you need to do is to check a box to be considered for this award, and then we will pick one out of all the submissions that is wants to be considered for this award. So I will encourage you to read through all the categories, which is pretty self-explanatory. But spend some time, read through it, and then if you have any questions, for example, you are wondering which categories should I submit, please let us know and then we can help you. And then for the eligibility, this year we open to ASLA student member and student affiliate members, as well as emerging professionals who graduated in 2024 within the school of within the Bay Area boundary, but using their student projects. because we kind of seeing like some, emerging professionals, they graduated and then before they graduate, they might not have the time to prepare to submit it for the award for the student work. So we kind of expanded to like having a year for you to submit. So if you know anyone who is an emerging professional who just graduated last year, who might be interested in submitting to us, please feel free to share this information with them. And then the other thing is we also open to, environmental planning students as well as urban design students. So urban design students, they can sign up as a student affiliate, ASLA student affiliate member with it. So but like, also I want to say like the student memberships are free. And then not only you can, submit it to us for the award, but there's also a lot of resources as a student membership. So that's about eligibility. And we also have listed the criteria that juries will be looking at your submission. So I will encourage you to spend some time reading through this criteria. So I just want to quickly mention about for student awards, you kind of need to meet the primary criteria. And also we are, because you are a student, and then we want to encourage you to be creative and to be bold of your ideas. We definitely want to encourage you to explore new methods, tools, or technology that advance our discipline. So the jurors will also be looking for the ideas, like the creativity that you have for the student submission. And Charlie already mentioned this. We have 6 very experienced, great landscape architects as our jury this year. So they will be reviewing both the professional and the student submissions. So if you are thinking about applying to their firm, after you graduated, this will be a good way to get recognized by them. And now I'm gonna kind of run through like the submission instructions with you. Also share some a few like screenshot of the Cayman like platform that we are using for award submission. So all the projects that you are so for the eligibility, like we kind of saying like either you are from a school within our chapter boundary, or the project that you are submitting is within our chapter boundary. So that's the first thing I will make sure. And our chapter will be using Cayman for you to submit for the award. And then this is also the same platform National is using. So, like I would say, like kind of getting used to use this platform will also be helpful for you when you submit it to the National ASLA Award. And then I want to mention that like the juries want to, like the process is blind, which means you can't put any, names or identification information on your submission. So it needs to be anonymous. So that's one thing, please remember not to include any names on the submission. And then for your submission, you will be required to have project title, which is the name of your project, and then project statement, which will limit it at 150 words or less. And then you also need to include a project narrative, which will be 700 words or less. And like I said, like you can also your submission can also be considered for the Biodiversity and Climate Action Award. So on the platform itself, you just need to check a box and say, oh, I wanted to be considered for this award. And then you'll be automatically being put in the pool for the consideration. But I will also kind of craft your narrative that's more biodiversity and climate action focused. And then you can use this climate action plan to guide your narrative. And we also listed like a few like criteria that we're looking for this award. And once you complete the project name and then narrative and the statement, um, you will be required to complete the statement of sustainability metrics. So you can choose not to. You can put like not applicable. But if your project is very like thinking about sustainability, I will definitely provide a blur about that under this section, because our chapter is very like this is one of our priorities and areas that we're focusing on, like the sustainability, climate action, and biodiversity. So I will think about that if my project applies sustainability principles. And then after you upload the statement, like all the written things, you will be required to upload like images as a supportive documents for your submission. So we are ask you to at least provide 5 more than 15 total image, and then combine them as one PDF with the letter size, and submit it on the platform. And you also need to include at least one site plan. But if you are submitting under research and communication, you don't need to include the site plan. Like I said, please use letter size and landscape orientation. And for each image that you provided, you need to also have captions for the image, kind of explaining, how this image is kind of, speak to the narrative that you wrote and then why it is important. So you also need to include captions. So the last thing is the student awards is $30 per submission. But we are definitely want to support the students. So if you have any financial difficulties with the fees, please feel free to reach out us. This is definitely negotiable, and then we'll make sure we find ways to make it happen. And now I just want to quickly share the platform, the submission platform with you. Wait a second. So on the website page that I sent it to you, that I put it on the chat, there's also like begin your submission here. So once you click that link, you'll be linked to this Cayman interface, and then you will need to register as a new user. And also like Laura will send you the access keys to start your submission. And then once you submit it, like this is what kind of this is your interface will look like. And Laura is she's amazing. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to her to ask if you have any questions about the submission platform. And then once you are in this interface, you can click here to begin your submission. And then this is where you put the project name and then put your status, which whether you are a student member or student affiliate members, anything, you can put it here. And then you will pump into like all the tasks that you need to complete to submit. So I will make sure that I click all the tasks here. And then this will, like, you can find more information about like the requirements for each text on the submission guidelines. So that's all I want to share so far. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
I
So
think there's one question in the chat box. It's from the Yang Yao. Uh, Yeah, we will have Anson to share some tips and examples. He has a lot of experience for submissions, both national and chapters. So yeah, welcome.
Hi everyone. It's nice to see you guys joining here. So I just dropped in the chat three links that I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next 10-15 minutes or so. Charlie, if I can grab the screen real quick here. So I only have a one pager in terms of, what I think the main points are. Um, Just a little bit about myself. I'm currently an associate at Field Operations, San Francisco office. I've used to work in a local office called GLS Landscape Architecture, based in San Francisco as well. So with like 6-7 years of working experience. And in my times, I went to Harvard Graduate School of Design for my MLA program. So during my time as a student, I've also submitted as to the Student Award, which luckily got awarded in 2019. And I've also been sort of actively helping my previous office at GLS for their annual submissions to the professional awards, different ones, not just ASLA. So I think the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to share some of my observations and main ideas, would what the jury usually are looking for, not necessarily saying uh whether that would be a good submission necessarily, but I think there are some important elements that you should be considering and evaluating whether your submission would be a strong one to actually get the awards. So the three really short bullet points here: one, to tell your full story; two, include really clear graphics; and three, be very, very precise. So I mean, they sounded very, very literal, but also in terms of, I think as a student, you have the experience of putting together portfolios, putting together different presentations, and there's always, remember, a very short time span and limited pages and images that you could be telling your story. So I think one key thing to remember for every student award submission or just award submission in general, telling the full, complete story within whatever material you're allowed to is very crucial because I think I wanted to go back to that question that was in the chat earlier. It's totally great to submit something that you're working on right now, but also like what Charlie mentioned, when you probably need to make a sort of a semi-conclusion, or even, if you're keeping that conclusion open-ended, you should put that in your narrative to say that that is part of the project. So being able to convey the ideas of the project from, in translation, it means to explain your concept and your strategy clearly, to then illustrate your design through nice graphics. Of course, graphics is very stylized, so I'm not going to go into, I think everyone has their own sort of preferred, graphic style, but I think being really clear to send the message, so you might have some really cool graphics of a, annotated diagram, but no one could really understand. So you might need to evaluate if that is the most effective diagram or graphics that can tell, the story of your project. And the last thing, of course, to explain what your vision and your innovations are for the project. So these are just, really basic components that makes up for a complete submission for any awards. So I'm going to share three examples that I personally worked on and actually got awarded, starting with this student award that I did in 2019, which is in the communications category for National ASLA. This is a project sort of rooted in my hometown. I was born and raised in the city of Hong Kong. This is a submission about my research about these trees that grows on historical masonry stone walls. There's a big controversy around, whether or not the local government should be keeping these trees or should be, removing them. What is the future of these trees? So this project, it's sort of carefully created to be in the communications category because it started off with a research, but the outcome was actually a toolkit that sort of inspired people to, think about what the possible future is. The whole premise of this project is not to have a conclusion, but to provide sort of ways of thinking about, what are the possible futures for this cultural landscape that I think as a designer is important to, my hometown. So I think that ties back to what Thea mentioned about, thinking about what category your project is suitable to be in is very crucial. I think that actually affects how you would be creating your project. So, for example, in communications, it's very common that there are components of, physical publications that sort of, explain what your project is as tools. It's being evaluated in terms of being tools to communicate with different stakeholders in related to your project. I've created a website that's still up and running today related to this campaign. There were exhibitions held in the past in the GSD just to really reach out to a broader audience. So there are different components that you might be including in your submission that actually really adds the depth and variety other than just, like two-dimensional screenshots of your design work. So, powerful images like this, really giving the scale of the project, I think is really strong. So really start with compelling, important photo that kind of, your audience would get the idea in first sight. I think that's usually a good way to start. So I'm just going to flip through a couple of these slides. I think, if there is a historic component, which pretty much every project would have, I think limited to maybe one or two or, whatever portion that you think is appropriate. But I think giving a very clear explanation on, what are the design inspirations drawn from these background information. Again, some things might be very dry. You can consider just spice it up by, for example, this is like a timeline-ish kind of, concept, and it was just redrawn in line work instead of, just being a kind of very straightforward imagey collage timeline. So there are different ways of explaining, concepts and history and background. So those are usually the first component of an award submission. Then you're going to go into, explaining the strategies, really the design, how you're approaching your design in your project. So again, that depends on how much materials you have, typical drawings, plans, and different scales, explain the context, going into more details of what you've done to actually visualize your vision and talk about your innovations. So pretty much this is a sort of a common structure of how I see a student award submission usually works. I wanted to also just show some of the other professional submissions, which I hope that in the future, if you are also interested in kind of helping your future company on doing any award submissions, I think this is very helpful to understand how a lot of these award programs work. So this is for a local award. for GLS, it's actually an analysis and planning project. That said, is a little different because I think that would be closer to any large scale projects, student project that you're doing, because again, a lot is relying on renderings. So being selective of, what you want to show with your rendering is important. And a lot of the times with large scale projects, it's very easy to get disoriented with where you are at, because again, don't expect people to be super familiar with your project in maybe the 3-5 minutes they have to go through all the projects. So being very, very clear and having the effort of even putting in kind of like small key plans, scales, and these very, very seemingly basic things actually helps a lot in terms of just orienting people where you're at in terms of the site. So I mean, this is kind of small right now here, but if you look at the submissions in your own time from the chat link, a lot of the work really when people spend on refining an award submission is to make it in a much easier and friendly way for people who are entirely unfamiliar with your project to get into the mode of, okay, so this is the problem, this is why you're doing this, and this is why it's done in a certain way. So again, having just really simple cues, and don't I would think don't be hesitant in terms of using annotations, diagrams, just to explain where things are in relations. You might not think that that's the most nicest graphics that you want to put out there, but again, adding a couple more keys actually do help people to understand a lot more about your project. So again, in terms of analysis and planning, that's a lot more about in zoom out scales, how your design works in a system. So this project in particular is a it's revitalizing an existing parking lot into 4 building blocks of affordable housing and mixed-use housing, as well as a central park that this development is surrounding. So, explaining the concept of the park, which is dealing with a 13 feet grade change from one end to another. So, if you talk about grade change, then it's very apparent that the section is very crucial to talk about how that works, and also showing how the idea of stormwater is being collected from the whole neighborhood into this central park, using the park as a landscape infrastructure to deal with that. So a lot of these graphics you can see very, very carefully created to really explain that whole idea of the landscape being planned as an infrastructure for this neighborhood. The last one is another national award winning submission from this year's from 2024's residential category. This is a project in the Mission District in San Francisco. Again, this might not be the most relevant, I would say, but just to walk you through one more time for a different category like this one, which is about residential design. It includes both multifamily and single family housing. So in the real world, in the professional world, a lot of these submissions would just be, professional photos. It takes time for these projects to kind of sit out, have planting to be grown in. This project itself took more than 3 years after completion to actually document, all the nice moments of the project, because the focus of this affordable housing project is really about the usage of people, the usage of space by different stakeholders in this community. So again, similar things, explaining where this project is situated in terms of its cultural relevance, in terms of how that relates to, people being displaced out of Mission District because of the gentrification of the dot-com boom and the tech industry, how to bring people back and also consider materials that are deep in this Hispanic neighborhood, and how that in turn turns into, this very simple but kind of inspired by the material palette of, the neighborhood kind of communal courtyard, illustrating that with, imagine these are going to be renderings that you're going to relate back to your project. This project has a heavy component of artists, studios, and embracing, art activities in the Mission District, and really, bringing in cultural activities, bands, dancing classes. So, and also acts as an important celebratory space for actually local groups to rent out in this property. So again, I think I'm trying to convey the message of, have the idea being very clear what you think is award winning, and craft your award submission around that. So for the second part of this submission, for example, is about this urban rooftop that is super green, is a safe play space that was provided for the vulnerable population in that area. This site is it's an urban infill site. So it actually kind of brings in, what's needed for the neighborhood in a very safe setting. So, I think that is pretty much what this first image is sort of conveying, being in an extremely urbanized area, but having this great patch of green and play area amongst that. So again, selection of imagery, how do you craft your story is pretty much the most critical about putting together a student award submission. And, feel free to show your colleagues, your work and see out. Do you get what exactly I'm talking about? Because, that's the easiest way to sort of get to understand, what's missing and what's doing great. So
Great, thank you, Anson. Um, so I think it's our